Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shah, Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Barak Kadash. All praises, honor, glory, love, respect, faith, and power, and trust, and all credit to my Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and my Heavenly Big Brother, Yahweh Shah. Thank you so much. What you've done, what you're doing, and what you're going to do. Double honors to the apostles and elders and bishops of GMS, Great Millstone, who I learned from, and all the men scattered all over the world, teaching this truth and none but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah. Trying to put a spiritual bug in you Hebrew Israelites' ears, you so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, and you speckled birds. And what is a speckled bird? That'd be a Hebrew Israelite that look like some of the heathen nations, like, for example, a Hebrew Israelite that look like a so-called white person, or so-called Chinese person, etc., etc. Got some videos lined up on America looking like shit financially and bumping heads with their neighbors. And pretty much just stuff, news. Anyway, I don't know what the title is, but I'm going to play these videos. I'm going to get into the scripture my best ability, say whatever God say through the spirit and power, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah, the Holy Spirit, the Krahak Dash. Lord want to be on me. Let's get it.
The United States is waging yet another war. This time, it's a trade war that the U.S. is waging against its northern neighbor and number 2 trading partner, Canada. Today, we're going to be explaining what exactly the Donald Trump administration is trying to do with this trade war against Canada, and how Canada actually has several options that it could use to retaliate. This trade war is going to hurt the Canadian economy, but it's quite possible it will backfire and hurt the U.S. economy as well. And this is why some major Western media outlets have been referring to this as a dumb trade war and warning that Trump will likely lose this trade war. Now, Washington...
Yeah, well, either way it's dumb or it's whatever. It's ultimately leading to that chip implant. Yeah. Because, hey, man, people going to be hurting. They going to need a solution. The East are going to come with that solution. They're going to be that chip implant.
Washington is very overconfident because it knows that Canada is very dependent on exporting to the U.S. market. However, in the past few years, Canada has diversified its trading relationship, trading more with China and Europe. And the trend is clearly moving in a direction of less reliance on the U.S. market, although 2/3 of Canada's exports still go to the U.S. market. So this is definitely a vulnerability. However, I mentioned that Canada does have some tools in its toolbox that it can use to retaliate. And one of the biggest of these is the U.S. reliance on exports of Canadian crude oil. The U.S. imports the majority of its crude oil from Canada, and U.S. refineries are very dependent on Canadian crude. And this comes at a time when the U.S. is still waging another war of aggression, this one against Iran, a conventional military war. And the U.S. war against Iran has caused the largest oil disruption crisis in modern history. And this has meant that many countries, including the U.S., are no longer able to import oil from the so-called Middle East, from West Asia. So the U.S. has become even more reliant on importing Canadian crude at a time when Trump decided to launch this trade war against Canada yet again. And many experts are warning that the U.S. is running out of oil in its reserves. The U.S. government runs something called the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and the level of oil in the SPR is at the lowest in 4 decades. So in short, this trade war is definitely going to hurt the Canadian economy. There's no doubt about that. But it could also significantly hurt the U.S. economy by further exacerbating the already existing oil crisis. And this could lead to higher rates of inflation just a few months before midterm elections will be held in the U.S. in November. So just like the Trump administration's war against Iran, which backfired and blew back in Trump's face, this trade war that he's waging against Canada very well could backfire and hurt him as well. So that's a brief overview of what's happening with this U.S. trade war against Canada. Let's go into greater detail to understand what exactly is happening and what the Trump administration is trying to do. Now, the U.S. and Canada previously had a trade agreement. It's called the USMCA, that is U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement, and it was brokered by none other than Donald Trump himself back during his first term as U.S. president. At that time, Trump praised it as, quote, the best and most important trade deal ever, end quote. However, when Trump returned for his second term as U.S. president starting last year in 2025, he decided that the deal was no longer good enough, and that's when he originally threatened a trade war with Canada and announced very high tariffs on certain products from Canada, which angered Ottawa, and the Canadian government argued that the U.S. was violating the USMCA. So then, this year, in July 2026, the U.S. government officially announced that it's not going to renew the USMCA, and Trump demanded a whole new trade deal, abandoning the previous deal that he negotiated just a few years ago. So the US and Canada negotiated, and then on the 18th of August, Trump announced that he paused the 50% tariffs that he had originally announced against Canada, and he declared that Canada and the US, subject to the finalization of documents, have a deal. However, if you know anything about Donald Trump, you know he has a long history, not only as president, but before as a billionaire real estate developer. He has a long history of announcing a deal, and then in the last minute, he suddenly changes the deal and makes unreasonable demands to try to bully the other side into making massive concessions. And then if the other side refuses to do so, he claims that they're the ones violating the deal. This is part of what Trump calls the art of the deal. This is why Trump has been sued thousands of times. I'm not exaggerating, literally thousands of times. And there have been many reports over decades of contractors who signed a contract with Trump and then he violated the deal. We're talking about workers, including carpenters, dishwashers, painters, even his own lawyers. He violates his side of the deal. This is what he calls the art of the deal. Iran learned this when, in 2025, the Iranian government was participating in what it thought were peace talks with the Trump administration. And then in June of last year, the US and Israel suddenly launched a surprise war for 2 weeks while Iran was participating in talks with the US. And then basically the same thing happened again this year when in June, the US and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to try to end the war. And then just a few weeks later, in July, Trump announced that the MOU is over. He unilaterally violated the agreement and he restarted the war against Iran. So this is how the US government...
Alright, anyway, I ain't playing no more of this. If you want to watch the rest of it, be my guest. There go the title. Oh, shit, what the fuck? They didn't want to do that. There go the title of the video. There go the channel. Let's get to the next video. The next video basically the same, but let's just see what they got to say.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
We're going up, boys.
Oh, that's
You know, let me tell you about President Trump. President Trump is the type of person that would steal your lunch money the first day. He'd steal the toque off your head the second day, and the third day he'd steal your running shoes. He is not to be trusted whatsoever.
Basically, he's a nigger. Donald Trump is a nigger. He steals shit like typical Edomite would.
We need to stay united. As you've heard, since last night around midnight, Donald Trump is putting tariffs on majority of the 338, 50% tariffs. We had a conversation with the Prime Minister all day yesterday, right up to probably quarter to 12, 11:45 when he called me to tell me the news. And I've always said we need to fight these tariffs, tariff to tariff, dollar to dollar. And I'm glad he didn't sign that deal because it was a bad deal. It was a bad deal for Ontario. It was a bad deal for the auto sector, the steel sector, and manufacturing sector. And we never started this fight, but I can assure you, we're going to win this fight. We're going to be a United Team Canada. We're going to use every single tool we have.
That's something rare to see in the background. They look like father, daughter, and mother holding hands with one another. Man, you rarely see something like that, especially here in the United States. They'll probably make that illegal. Hell yeah.
We never started this fight, but I can assure you, we're going to win this fight.
They'll probably make that illegal. Not to be holding hands with one another. No.
We're going to be a United Team Canada. We're going to use every single tool we have here in Ontario. And hopefully the rest of the premiers feel the same way. We have to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure, as Donald Trump is trying to inflict pain on every Canadian, that we inflict pain right back until he realizes that we're his number one customer in the world. And yes, they're our number one customer. But we have to make sure that we look at every single asset that we have, no matter if it's the critical minerals or if it's a steel or if it's a nickel, anything that we have here in Ontario, everything's on the table.
How much pain do you think Ontario is willing to take? Because it will be painful, as you said.
Yeah. Don't worry. Not me, Canada, they go by that same slogan what America been pushing back last year, or was it 2 years ago? Back when, I think when Trump was in office, or when he just got in office, he was talking about some short-term pain for long-term gain. There's gonna be some pain. It's gonna be short, supposedly. No, it ain't gonna be short. It's gonna be some long pain, and they're gonna be issuing out chip implants for you people.
It will be painful, but we have a strong, vibrant, diversified economy. We're diversifying around the world, and I think the job numbers speak for itself.
Whatever. Anyway, I don't want to watch the rest of this shit because they all full of shit. All these nations, but they showing you that America. Nobody don't want to deal with America. Nobody don't want to deal with America. And they talking about blackouts for America because what is it? Something to do with their power? Yeah. Canada runs, I think, the northeastern area of electricity or some shit like that. Let me see. Which part of electricity does Canada run for America? I don't know the best way to phrase it, but I'm gonna say it like that. Canada provides roughly 1% or less of total electricity consumed, but where in the United States? Northern border states, I guess. I don't know which one. Oh, here we go. New York, New England, Massachusetts. Yeah, pretty so much in the the northern states. Okay, up in the northern border areas. Washington State, North Dakota. Yeah, imagine them being out of power. Ooh, that'd be rough. Yeah, that'd be rough for them folks. And then, hell, it's going to be rough for the rest. Because if them states be out of power, that's going to affect other states, neighboring states. Yeah, because like them states, they might produce things that people need down below. And, and then it'd be shit out of luck. Anyway, this shit going to get worse, bro. You better seek your how about your mouth shot. The Lord plaguing this place. And they got all these nations. The Lord got all these nations coming against America, Babylon the Great. But it's going to also affect the whole world.
Last month, the federal government put out the job numbers. 70,000 jobs, 52,000 were here in Ontario over 4 months. Over 120,000 jobs. These
All right, whatever. I said I was through with this video. If you want to watch the rest of it, be my guest. They're going to title up, they're going to channel Times of India. Let's see what this Jimmy Dore got to say. Hell, I got 3 videos from Jimmy Dore.
Have you heard about Pop-On Roofing? We need 50 homeowners in your area to trial this radically simple new roofing. There is a shortage of crude, and that shortage of crude affects what refineries can produce. And when refineries aren't producing as much diesel, that means the price of diesel is going up. Right at the time in the Northern Hemisphere that we need to harvest crops, that means tractors are going to be putting in more expensive diesel, not less.
And so this just signals to me more pain coming for the American consumer and the American economy. This is actually a bad thing. This signal.
Now they say it's going to be less pain and more gain.
Almost a catastrophe. Doesn't look good. Here's some more. I think that.
Yeah, the Trump administration said, even the news media kept saying that shit constantly. Talking about some damn long-term gain for short-term pain, whatever.
This is bad news. Some people would look at this as good news, but I think this signals something bad happening. Trump just lifted the summer gasoline restrictions early as prices remain stubborn. The Trump administration is ending summertime smog restrictions on gasoline early this year in a bid to offer relief for high gas prices at the pump. The Environmental Protection Agency issued a waiver on Thursday allowing for sales of gasoline with higher evaporation potential starting September 1st rather than in the middle of the month. In the summer, this is typically banned to prevent evaporation and smog formation due to the heat. The EPA said the move would augment the nation's gasoline supply by hundreds of thousands of barrels a day. Overall, the U.S. gas consumption is 8.9 million barrels per day on average in 2026. So, to me, that tells me that it's getting worse.
Yes.
Is that what it tells you?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Look, they've been able to, the smoke and mirrors, the Magician Act, where they've been drawing down from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, so artificially keeping the supply steady over the last 5 months by basically stealing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But now the SPR is down to a level that if they keep drawing from it, they're going to weaken the structural integrity of the caverns, the salt caverns in which this oil has been stored. Because when that oil is put into the salt caverns, the way they get it out is they pump water into it. So oil sits on top of the water. As the water fills up the cavern, the oil comes to the surface, able to pump it out. But you can reach a point where there's so much water in there, it dissolves the salt. Go figure. And then that weakens the structure. Those things collapse. So you can no longer use them. But the other thing is, it goes back to our earlier discussion. If Trump is right, that the Strait of Hormuz is open, that, well, hell, we're getting 50% of the oil that used to come out of there on a daily basis. There's ample supply. Then why this? Because there's not ample supply. The supply, they've been able up to this point pretend like there was not a cutoff of 20% of the world's supply of oil. And the fact is, there are measures that they took to try to mitigate that by drawing on petroleum reserves, not just in the United States, around the world. That's now come to an end. That party's over. Now we got to deal with the reality. There is a shortage of crude, And with that shortage of crude affects what refineries can produce. And when refineries aren't producing as much diesel, that means the price of diesel is going up. Right at the time in the Northern Hemisphere that we need to harvest crops. That means tractors are going to be putting in more expensive diesel, not less.
This video actually shouldn't have been belonging to something else. I didn't expect them to. I mean, I haven't watched these videos, so I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, that video shouldn't have been put in. Cause I got a video right here talking about diesel prices. Yeah, here it go, a diesel crisis. Yeah, when there's a crisis with diesel, you know there's gonna be a food crisis because a lot of farmers need diesel to run their machines and shit. Yep. And plus you need, big rigs to haul the food and whatever else using diesel.
So this just signals to me more pain coming for the American consumer and the American economy. This is actually a bad thing. This signals almost a catastrophe, and it's going to get way worse, right? Way worse.
Now, what I'm hearing from, and I don't claim to be an expert in the derivative market, but I'm speaking with two people who are. And this derivatives, people want to think about the derivatives market. It's like the ultimate crooked casino, but you can go into a casino and your option is, okay, I'm going to bet on blackjack, or I'm going to bet on the player that bets on blackjack, or I'm going to bet on the guy who's betting on the player on blackjack, or I'm going to bet on the guy who's betting on the guy who's betting on the, it just cascades. That market's $1 quadrillion. I can't even wrap my mind around that. 1 quadrillion, and they fully expect when the implosion, because people get over leveraged in that market, just like this is what happened in 2008. That was a derivatives market explosion as well, but it was confined to the real estate industry. This one is tied up in the energy industry, and it's going to be bad. And the chances that it hits before the midterm elections are pretty strong. And
well, I hope it comes before then. Shit, fuck a midterm. I don't give a fuck.
If it does, it's going to be a bloodbath for the Republicans.
Shit, gonna be a bloodbath for you Babylonians. Anyway, let's get to the next one. What the fuck? Come on.
Operation
long ass ads. I don't need this shit.
Economic Outcast Unleashed. Wow. And that's the photo they chose of Scott Bessent. We talked about this in the last video. And we're saying here, America's entering the end game. I agree, the end game. That's what America's entering. And then they're saying it's the single greatest financial offensive ever mounted against an adversary. And I'm thinking you're going against the world economy and everyone's wallets. So there's that.
I think we are on the verge of a credit crisis. I believe that when you have, and to tie it back in with the hyperscaler AI spend in the corporate market, a lot of these data centers, they're being spent with borrowed money. So you see the Treasury, especially the 30-year Treasury, at a yield that we haven't seen since 2007. You have to be concerned that number one, there's inflation, and number two, there's too much debt that needs to be refinanced. That's not even talking about the $1 trillion in real estate, commercial real estate, that needs to be refinanced.
So we're talking about debt, right? The whole modern economy, the U.S. economy is built on debt. Now we're using debt, borrowed money to build data centers. Then he brings up real estate. And before, Fox was trying to say, guys, we're doing great because look at all of this wealth we have. But is it really wealth if it's all based on debt? That's the question.
That facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. The clock just started ticking. These measures broaden secondary sanctions risk for anyone foolish enough to continue conducting business with this regime, and will accelerate the speed with which we pursue them.
So, Steve, this wasn't just a warning to Iran, this was a message to the world.
Yeah, look, the friend of our enemy is our enemy, and that's what the Secretary Bessent is saying here. Robert is exactly right that one of the key players here is China.
Declaring this to the world, they bring up China. What was it? The friend of our enemy is our enemy. So I guess we're declaring war on everyone, economic war, or asphyxiation, I guess was the phrase. It doesn't look good, and I'm showing you guys what different market participants are saying.
Secretary Bessent said a major financial institution will be sanctioned this week. Vali, do you have any thoughts on who that might be?
No, I mean, we know that already all the major Western financial institutions have got out of any kind of a business with Iran. Iran is not able to use the SWIFT financial transaction mechanism, which means that even if banks wanted to deal with Iran, they don't have a regular way to deal with Iran. So that major financial institution is perhaps a Chinese institution or a Hong Kong institution connected to China. And my sense is that it potentially can invite a Chinese retaliation if the US did something like that. So the US is essentially expanding its war in the Gulf to a much greater war between itself and other global actors around the world, which seems to be shooting itself in the foot. It is basically expanding the geography of this war out of the Gulf into the financial markets, and it's going to get entangled with some major global actors with whom it has other business and other sets of issues that it has to deal with.
So how could this end up well? Seriously, like if this is our plan to piss off everyone in the whole world, and we are trying to get these people to trade in dollar, and we want them to buy our debt, be it to fund our data centers, fund our real estate, fund our economy, fund the war, and we're pissing everyone off. I mean, how is that going to play out? Is this a good strategy? And clearly it's not, but I just want you to just think about these questions as we go through the stuff as people are reacting.
Seriously? So, when you get cut off from the U.S. Treasury system, that is a big deal. However, we did see when we sanctioned Russia that they just simply changed their currency from the U.S. dollar to the Chinese yuan. And I think that we'll see some of that, and that's why I was watching the dollar to see how it reacts to this news. This certainly can put pressure on the dollar if a lot of countries decide to switch their currencies. Not that I think that the U.S. dollar is not going to become, is in risk of not becoming the go-to for the world, but it's something to keep an eye on, especially given the other news.
She's talking about the reality of what if all these countries abandon the USA, and then she's like, wait, I'm on Fox News, I got to control myself here. Okay, but I don't think it's going to happen, and just forget that I ever brought that up. But this is actually a concern. And we talked about this several times on the channel. If the U.S. thinks that they're going to declare, war against the world and think that everyone's going to want to trade with USA, it's just not a good way to do business, right? It's like hanging a sign outside your, restaurant saying, "I hate you, please buy from me." Like, how does that even make sense? Clearly, it doesn't. And then you wonder, why Trump has so many bankruptcies and otherwise, or wonder why Trump can't get any good people to work with him.
It was mentioned earlier, Joe, that as of right now, Scott Bessent is running the war with Iran much more than Pete Hegseth is. And as the administration turns from military warcraft to economic statecraft, I'm just wondering your thoughts on this. You worked very closely with him. Is this something that he envisioned? Did you game this out when you were at the Treasury? And is the country in better hands now that he's in charge of this?
Well, obviously, I'm very happy having worked for the Secretary. I'm very...
All right, let's stop right there. If you want to watch the rest of the video, there go the title of it. There go this channel. Zoom in a little bit. Oh, shit. That was not what's supposed to happen. Yeah, there you go, right there. Boy. I was just thinking about, I see that video right here when they show that footage. They said 1,300 people missing. Damn right. There'd be thousands out there missing or dead. When I seen that footage, boy, that shit was, but that got the scare the bejeebus. Well, I won't say bejeebus. That should scare the skit out of you. That should scare the skit out of you. Seeing that footage, bro. Heck yeah, bro. That destruction from over in Nepal. Let's get to this next one. Japan's zombie economy is about to crash.
Japan make the cars. I mean, everybody loves the Japanese car. I mean, you would think they would have a kick-ass economy with the car. They make, but they still make. They don't make transistor radios anymore. But
yeah, that's the thing. Like everything you think about that Japan's so technologically advanced. Yeah, back in the 1980s, they were living in the year 2000. But here in 2026, they're living in the year 2000. So
really,
they have never progressed.
We got special guest James Corbett, award-winning investigator.
Hold on, what did he say?
Make transistor radios anymore, but
yeah, that's the thing. Like everything you think about that Japan's so technologically advanced. Yeah, back in the 1980s, they were living in the year 2000. But here in 2026, they're living in the year 2000. So
really,
they have never progressed.
America ain't either. Shit, ain't nothing new here to be made. It's pretty much technology is now is dried up. And there ain't nothing new.
We got special guest James Corbett, award-winning investigative journalist. He's host of the Corbett Report, independent, listener-supported alternative news source covering breaking news and important issues from 9/11 truth to false flag terror to the police state, eugenics, geopolitics, and more. His most recent expose is a deep dive into the events of October 7th, but also he's got a great book, Reportage. I call it reportage, but you can say reportage if you want, if you're pretentious. If you're a big snooty bookworm kind of person, nerdy guy, you can say reportage. James, great to see you. Thanks for coming back to the show.
Great to see you, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on.
Now you're in Japan, right?
That's right.
And you feel safe there?
That's a big question. Safer than I would be in some other countries, maybe, and that's only because a lot of Japanese people can't speak Gaelic English, so I'm somewhat protected by the veil of linguistic ignorance.
Do you speak Japanese?
Enough to get by. You know, I'm not super amazingly linguistically gifted in Japanese, as I obviously am in English with my reportage abilities, but I get by.
Now, sayonara, is that Japanese?
Yes, it is. And in fact, you know what? I'll show you the Japanese edition of reportage.
Oh, look at that. Oh,
yeah,
who could
read?
read?
All blurry, but
That's
Nichi
reportage.
Shihai, Nichi Setsu, Nichi Shihai no Zembo.
Wow, it looks like a.
Just rolls off the tongue.
It looks like they dunked a chicken claw in ink
I know.
and have them
Japanese
scratch it.
books are. This looks like total nonsense to me, but I swear to God, every Japanese book looks like this. It's just.
It's like they have to. It's like they have to draw a picture of a house with a roof every time they want to say something. Am I wrong? It's like it's all pictures.
Nah, it's just you Americans are fucking stupid. Well, really more than shit. Y'all niggas are stupid. Anyway, I don't know how to speak Japanese, but shit, it's just another language. Anyway.
It's like hieroglyphics almost.
Yeah, it's a full on.
How are things with the gas and oil because of the Strait of Hormuz and the Iran war? I hear they're not getting the oil they're supposed to. Is that true?
Well, you know, that was a big story here for a couple of weeks, and then it just kind of went away. And I guess I don't know whether they're still releasing from the reserves here or what, but it's not like gas prices are skyrocketing here. They've gone up, but they're not incredibly high yet. Presumably they're going that way, but I don't know. I don't know what jiggery pokery they're doing to try to keep things tamped down for now. But just generally, the yen is falling apart and is inflating away to nothing. So
no kidding. Why do you think that is?
A number of structural reasons. I mean, really, the question is, how did Japan manage to have such a relatively strong economy / yen for the last 30 years, despite complete stagnation of the economy? Since the bubble pop of 1990, it's just been a zombie economy with zombie banks. It got to negative inflation, or negative interest at some point in the past several years, and no matter what they did, they could not get inflation going here, and that was the big mandate of the central bank. And I've been living here over 2 decades, and from the time I got here till about 2024, 2023, prices just did not move at all. Nothing increased in price. And now suddenly everything is increasing in price very rapidly.
Well, when energy costs more, everything costs more, right?
I remember, when was it? Like a couple years ago. I mean, we had inflation going on here in America and other parts around the world, like in UK. But I remember some news, they'd talk about how prices weren't going up and there was no inflation happening in Japan. But now all of a sudden it's happening.
Exactly.
So they figured it out. Maybe they're happy that Donald Trump started this war then, maybe.
I guess so. I mean, they, them, those are. Whoever they, them, those are. They're happy about that kind of stuff.
I mean, Japan make the cars. I mean, everybody loves the Japanese car. I mean, you would think they would have a kick-ass economy with the car. They make... But they still make they don't make transistor radios anymore. But with the
yeah, that's the thing. Like everything you think about that Japan's so technologically advanced. Yeah, back in the 1980s, they were living in the year 2000. But here in 2026, they're living in the year 2000. So
really,
they have never progressed. Yeah.
They let China just blow right past them.
Yeah. And there's a whole story behind that. If people are interested, I did a report years ago on China and the New World Order about how China was specifically bolstered and set up to be the boogeyman of the 21st century, like the USSR was the boogeyman of the 20th century. The secret banking deals that they were cutting with David Rockefeller back in the 80s to start the whole boom and all of this. It's all on the record, but of course no one's connecting the dots. But yeah, absolutely, China has been positioned to be the economic giant that it is now.
So when you say positioned by the global order?
Yes, absolutely. Which sounds crazy, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, but they're American, right? The globalists are American. Well, no, not really. They don't have allegiance to any particular national flag. And when you look at things like the Rockefellers, they brag about their long history.
The Rothschilds. He said the globalists are Americans. Well, then no, they're scattered, but mainly they them British niggas, them small hat people. Yeah, Amalek.
With China and their Chinese institutions. You look at Yale in China, which literally was the institution that propped up or that gave Mao his early start. He was an insignificant nothing when they plucked him out of the ether to start writing for their journal. But they even bragged in the Yale Daily News or whatever it was a couple of decades ago. Mao was a Yalie, essentially. He didn't go to the school, but he was propped up by them. Skull and Bones has been neck deep in Chinese ambassador posts. All of the U.S. ambassadors to China and high-level delegates to China for decades were all Skull and Bones, Yalie, CIA kind of people. There's a deep history and connection there that a lot of people wouldn't know about.
So why would the Western quote-unquote global financial order want to prop up China? Is it because that they saw cheap labor and they could exploit more and make more money that way?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's not just a one particular cause. Like any sort of big machination, there's always a number of different things. So one thing that brings some of the people to the table is absolutely the cheap labor, the offshoring, that has obviously made billions for certain multinational corporations. And you look obviously at some...
All right, I'm going to start right there. I didn't even know. I should have played this video first. I didn't know what this... I thought it was something to do with America, but clearly it says something about Japan. But anyway, I got another video about Europe. Was it Europe's economic collapse is accelerating? I'm gonna play that too, and I haven't played that woman video in a minute. Some of them she been interviewing people most of the time. But yeah, since last time I played a video was like a month ago. Hold on, let me slow down. My words are all over the place. I'm all over the place. Last time I played a video of that woman, what's her name? Nina Petrova, was like maybe a month ago, maybe 2 months ago. Cause every other video she come out with, it'd be always an interview with somebody. And it'd be like an hour long, and I'm like, yo, I ain't playing that shit. But here's on is 11 minutes, and they're talking about Europe's economic collapse. And then I'm gonna work on down to the rest, and this is about the United States, going back to the United States. Anyway, let me get to this one. And then at the end, I'm gonna get into the scriptures.
Europe thought its inflation crisis was finally under control. It wasn't. Instead, Europe is now facing a dangerous combination of higher energy prices, renewed inflation, expensive borrowing, weak industrial growth, and on top of that, fierce competition from China. And these problems are feeding into one another. This is a perfect storm, essentially. The result, of course, could be a new European economic crisis that is definitely looming, and a crisis that would put the European Central Bank in an extraordinarily difficult position. Here's how the chain reaction actually works. It started with energy shock, inflation followed, then higher interest rates, expensive borrowing, weak growth, industrial decline, Chinese imports, European protectionism, and finally escalating trade tension. So let's start with energy. Europe remains exceptionally vulnerable to energy prices because its industrial economy depends heavily on imported energy. Well, of course, we know that Europe gave up cost-effective Russian energy due to political reasons, at its own detriment. So that's all there is to that. The geopolitical shocks of 2026 have pushed oil and gas prices higher, while concerns about European gas inventories are adding to the pressure. Markets are increasingly worried that elevated energy costs could keep inflation above the European Central Bank's target. And we're already seeing the consequences. We didn't have to wait too long. Euro area inflation rose to 2.9% in July, up from 2.8% in June, and significantly above the ECB's 2% target rate. Energy inflation accelerated particularly sharply. And so that creates the ECB's nightmare effectively. Normally, when an economy is weak, as European economy is weak, a central bank can cut interest rates to stimulate borrowing, to stimulate investments and consumption. But what happens when the economy is weak and inflation is rising at the same exact time? The central bank is effectively trapped. If the ECB cuts rates aggressively, it risks adding fuel to inflation. If it keeps rates high or raises them, it risks making an already weak economy even weaker. So the ECB has already kept its key rates unchanged, with the deposit rate at 2.25%, while markets are increasingly anticipating a more hawkish stance going forward. And that means borrowing remains expensive. It will continue to remain expensive for the foreseeable future. For European businesses, this matters enormously. Companies need credit to build factories, to purchase equipment, to build out their inventories, to hire workers, and to expand their production. Well, consumers need credit too, and they need credit to buy homes and to make major purchases. Governments need to refinance enormous quantities of debt too, but credit is expensive. And higher interest rates don't just affect financial markets, as you can see. They affect the real economy, they affect you and I. And this is happening while European growth remains very, very fragile. The ECB itself has acknowledged that higher energy prices create a combination of weaker growth and higher inflation, which is the classic stagflation problem, which I discussed here on my channel previously in great detail. Nowhere is the problem more obvious, however, than Germany. Germany is Europe's industrial powerhouse, but its traditional economic model has been under pressure from high energy costs, from weak foreign demand, geopolitical uncertainty, and increasingly intense competition with China. And now Germany is facing another problem, and the problem is China is no longer simply buying German industrial products. China is increasingly competing with them. Germany's trade deficit with China widened during the first half of this year, even though China remained Germany's largest trading partner, and German imports from China are rising. In June of 2026, German imports from China increased by 9.1%, which contributed to a narrowing German trade surplus. This is part of what economists increasingly describe as a new China shock. Of course, what they don't tell you is that the EU is primarily focused on financing its proxy war against Russia via Ukraine, instead of rebuilding and really helping its economy grow. But we will leave that angle aside for now. I will discuss it in an interview with an expert export in the next several days. So it goes without saying that China has enormous manufacturing capacity, but domestic demand isn't always sufficient to absorb that production. So Chinese companies increasingly look overseas, and Europe is one of the world's largest markets. The consequences are potentially enormous for Europe. Chinese electric vehicles, machinery, industrial equipment, chemicals, steel, and other manufactured products are increasingly competing with European products. And so for European consumers, there is an obvious benefit to that. The benefit is cheaper imports can help reduce prices. But for the manufacturers in Europe, the story is very different. Cheap imports can squeeze profit margins, they reduce investment, and ultimately they threaten domestic production. And so that situation, as I'm sure you can tell by now, creates an enormous political dilemma for Brussels. Europe wants cheaper goods, sure, everybody wants that, but Europe also wants European factories, it wants to decarbonize, it wants to maintain high-paying industrial jobs, it wants strategic independence, and it also wants to compete with China. But can it have all of those things at once? Those objectives can conflict, and they do. So Europe is increasingly moving toward protectionism. The EU has already imposed trade restrictions on Chinese EVs and is now examining additional defensive measures, as it calls it. It says these are defensive measures in sectors ranging from steel to medical products. But protectionism creates another problem. And the problem is China can retaliate, and Europe is heavily dependent on trade. If Brussels raises barriers against Chinese products, Beijing can respond against European exports. And that is particularly dangerous for Germany, whose industrial economy has historically depended on exporting high-value manufactured goods around the world. And now Europe is caught between two economic pressures, effectively. From one direction comes an energy shock, pushing costs and inflation higher, and then from the other direction comes a Chinese manufacturing shock, which pushes prices and competition higher as well. So the ECB has limited room to respond to either one of those issues. It cannot produce more natural gas, it cannot make Chinese factories less competitive, and it cannot solve Europe's structural productivity problem by changing interest rates. That is why the current situation is so dangerous. Europe's problem isn't simply inflation, it isn't simply weak growth, it isn't simply China, it is the interaction between all three. Higher energy prices push inflation higher, higher inflation limits the ECB's ability to cut rates, and higher rates keep borrowing expensive. So effectively, expensive borrowing, of course, in terms discourages investment. So weak investment makes European industries less competitive. So effectively, Europe's problem is Europe. Europe's problem are its own policies. Now, meanwhile, Chinese manufacturers continue expanding their global market share. European governments then respond with tariffs and trade barriers, and China potentially retaliates. And so the cycle becomes even more difficult to escape. This is why Europe's economic challenge is increasingly becoming a competitiveness crisis. Europe is no longer competitive. It is not competitive under the current circumstances. The question is no longer simply whether Europe can get inflation back to 2%. The bigger question is whether Europe can remain an industrial powerhouse while paying relatively high energy costs, while maintaining an expensive social model and investing heavily in its military-industrial complex, and prioritizing war over peace. So that is really the big question. And of course, there's one final irony that I would just like to bring up here. Europe may be tempted to respond to China's industrial challenge with the same protectionist tools that it's used in the past, and that Washington has been using too. But tariffs alone don't make an economy competitive. They can protect an industry, they can buy time, but they cannot substitute for cheap energy, for technological innovation, for productive output, for productivity growth, and of course for investment. So Europe therefore faces a very difficult choice. It can protect its industries from Chinese competition for a certain period of time, or it can allow more competition and risk accelerating deindustrialization. And neither option is painless, of course. And so the longer Europe postpones the underlying reforms, changing its policies, the harder the choices become. The ECB, of course, can fight inflation all day long. Governments can subsidize industry, and Brussels can impose tariffs, but none of these policies by themselves solves Europe's fundamental problem. And the problem is Europe needs cheaper energy, it needs faster productivity growth, and it needs more competitive industry at precisely the moment when geopolitical tensions are making all three harder to achieve. And so that is why Europe's new economic crisis is looming, and it is going to be much bigger than just an inflation problem. It could become a crisis of European competitiveness itself and the decline of Europe as we know it. So hopefully you enjoyed this quick update and you found it interesting and useful. Let me
Anyway, let's see what this is about. Oh yeah, the dollar in Russia. Whatever.
Folks, we better buckle up. It is here. We just crossed the point of no return, and there may be no coming back from this de-dollarization that is accelerating. And President Putin of Russia just said the quiet part out loud this week. The world is moving away from the US dollar, he said, quickly, and he said the US is killing the US dollar on purpose. It's hard to disagree with that. So what we witnessed this week was unprecedented in American history. America needed roughly 2 centuries to accumulate its first $1 trillion in debt. We just added the latest trillion in approximately 5 months, and now $40 trillion in public debt. That happened this week. The Treasury Department intervened in the bond market, long-term interest rates surged to levels that we haven't seen in nearly 2 decades, and the US dollar began showing major new cracks this week. These aren't like 5 unrelated financial stories. They're all connected. So we have some huge news to get to today that I want to break down. I want to walk you through exactly what happened so you can protect your family, because most Americans have no idea that any of this is taking place. But it's going to affect every one of us in the coming months, from the value of your savings, the interest rate on your mortgage, the cost of borrowing money, and ultimately the future of the dollar itself. And oh, you're going to love this. As I told you in the past 2 weeks, gold, silver, copper, gold mining stocks have all been on a tear. Rarely in the past few decades have we seen this type of tear. Economist Peter Schiff has been saying it loudly. This week he was saying it loudly. There's a clear breakout right now. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to profile an incredible sponsor, which one shareholder owns 71% of. It's unheard of. It trades on the NASDAQ, and I consider it a top quality stock that I'm going to talk about later in the show. But first, let's get to the news. Let's begin with the number that should stop every American in their tracks, $40 trillion. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around this. America's total public debt, $40 trillion, first time in history. The Congressional Budget Office now projects another $1.9 trillion deficit this year. Annual net interest costs are expected to exceed $1 trillion. Think about that. We're spending more than $1 trillion every year just servicing the money the government has already borrowed. Bessent says that the way out of this is to grow our way out of it. Listen.
The 40 trillion is a big number. It is smaller when we look at the publicly traded amount, because our Social Security funds and other government entities hold a substantial amount. And what we're going to do, we're going to have to grow our way out of this.
Okay, but we're not in a world war. I mean, some might argue what's going on with Iran and Russia is a world war, but not in the way that we think of like World War I, World War II, right? It isn't happening during a Great Depression. We're not in the Great Depression. It isn't even happening during an official recession. So we have to grow our way out of it? Washington is now running crisis-level deficits as a permanent feature of the American economy. So if our economy is booming, as Trump claims, then how do you grow your way out of it? I don't get it. Like, if we're booming right now, how do you? And we're not growing our way out of it. How do you get there? So that's the first major warning sign. The second major warning sign appeared in the bond market this week. Investors have been selling long-term U.S. government debt, driving the yield on the 30-year Treasury above 5.3%, its highest level since 2007. And that matters because these yields help determine borrowing costs throughout the economy. Mortgage rates, corporate loans, government refinancing, countless other interest rates are connected to what happens in this market. And when those yields began moving sharply higher, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stepped in. The Treasury announced that it would at least double the size of certain buyback operations for bonds in the 10.
Man, this shit sound boring as hell. I'm gonna get to this last one.
I'm lowering my ask.
You get to the idea of the damn currency shit. Let's see what Jimmy Dore got to say about this one in this video.
Just $1.
God damn it, it gotta be so damn long ass ads. Tired of this shit.
The president is making phone calls to world leaders with specific requests to cease their interaction with the regime. We are already seeing results. Over the weekend, comments from Iranian leadership clearly acknowledged the effect of this campaign, and nations that facilitate any interactions with the regime should quickly heed our message. Those who stand with the United States will reap the rewards of our partnership. Those who tether themselves to the Iranian regime should expect to share in the isolation of a withering regime.
This is Trump hurdling us quicker to the end of the United States dollar being the reserve currency of the world. That's the real effect here. Okay, so clear sign that the Iran war is not going well and Trump doesn't have a way out. There's no military way out of this. And now they're going to try and do, this is the economic D-Day, meaning they're going to do even more horrible economic sanctions on Iran, which they did last year. Remember, there were people in the streets protesting in Iran, and the reason was because Scott Bessent and the Trump administration had put crippling economic sanctions on them and devalued their currency, so everybody's retirement was worth nothing and the dollar was worth nothing. But that was before the war. So now then they started a war in late February, right? Was it February 28th they started that war? Anyway, and so now, and Trump said it's going to be over in 2 weeks, it's going to be in and out, bum. We killed Ayatollah, we killed his whole family, it's all going to be good. Well, guess what? It's not going well. There's no way out. We're almost all the way out of our strategic petroleum reserves, which means that energy prices, gas prices, and everything's going to go through the roof. And we already know that the foreign countries are selling our bonds. So the bonds, which makes our debt much, much more expensive to pay, to service. So right now, Scott Bessent, Trump's Treasury Secretary, just gave the most unhinged speech about how the U.S. is unleashing Operation Economic Outcast on Iran and sanctioning every country that does business with them. This is going to backfire. This is going to unleash more economic hardship on the American people. And this is the worst thing in the world that could happen, is that people around the world stop using the United States dollar to buy stuff. Like before the war, Iran used to have to get American dollars to go buy stuff. They don't anymore. Why? Because China's now backing Iran, and they're using, people are buying and selling oil in the Chinese currency. So let's listen to his crazy speech.
It is no longer acceptable to operate in the gray spaces of this conflict. Countries cannot claim they are blind to enabling this activity. Iran's enablers purchase, transport its petroleum. They facilitate the flow of its finances through exchange houses and free trade zones. They welcome Iran's flights and maintain registries on its behalf. They turn a blind eye to seaborne fuel transfers and overland transits. They condone illicit use of their banks.
It sounds like America saying, y'all ain't playing fair. Nigga, you motherfuckers never were playing fair.
While concealing the extent of their complicity. The president is making phone calls to world leaders.
Things just ain't going well for America. Or Esau over here in America. Things ain't going well. And now people just saying, fuck you. Hey, the Lord's making this devil bear, man. With all these nations just not even bothering. They don't even want to, how can I say it? Anyway, they're no longer the authority of the world.
With specific requests to cease their interaction with the regime. We are already seeing results. Over the weekend, comments from Iranian leadership clearly acknowledged the effect of this campaign, and nations that facilitate any interactions with the regime should quickly heed our message. Those who stand with the United States will reap the rewards of our partnership. Those who tether themselves to the...
Reap the reward? What? They usually say if you don't partner up with us, we'll kill you. We'll fucking sanction you. We'll drop bombs on you. We'll put the disease in your countries, and we'll try to influence your people to be gay and shit. Anyway,
Iranian regime should expect to share in the isolation of a withering regime. Teams from Treasury, State, and the U.S. military are now meeting with their global counterparts to tell them that the United States expects action. Every country has a defined timeline to shut down activities we have identified. If they do not take action, we will do so unilaterally through Treasury authorities. For example, every branch of Bank Melay must be shuttered and dark. And let me be clear, any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. The clock just started ticking. The new sectoral sanctions determinations.
So he looks like he's about to have a panic attack. This is called desperation, and this is what's going to cause the United States to be the economic outcast of the world, and Iran's going to join China and BRICS and become Star Trek as we become the road warrior. The only thing that's keeping our country and our economy afloat is that the fact that we are still the reserve currency of the world. Doing this, using that fact against countries, makes countries less likely to want to use the dollar to buy stuff, buy and sell stuff. This isn't going to work because China is backing Iran. And China has already made it illegal for their banks in China to go along with any U.S. sanctions. It's illegal for Chinese companies and banks to go along with U.S. sanctions. This is desperation. I don't even know what. And by the way, there's also a thing called the Mecca deal, which is a joint defense agreement or pact between Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Pakistan, and I'm. Through good sources have said that Pakistan just went and offered that deal to Iran. So now we'll have Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Iran in a defense pact, And we have China and BRICS, which is, remember, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and there's 11 other countries that want to join on BRICS, which is a new economic power center to get away from the U.S. dollar. And now Iran will just join that, and we're screwed. So this is Trump hurdling us quicker to the end of the United States dollar being the reserve currency of the world. That's the real effect here. So they know that the United States cannot protect the Middle East, because as soon as we attacked Iran wiped out all our military bases. And the reason why we have military bases in the Gulf states like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, all those places is because we were going to give them military protection and they would only sell their oil in US dollars. Well, now it's proven that we can't protect them. So now they're starting different military alliances like Mecca. Pakistan's not going to go along with this. Doesn't sound like Turkey will. China certainly isn't. This is Trump, and this guy is the worst Treasury Secretary in my lifetime. He doesn't know dick about being a Treasury Secretary, and what he is an economic hitman. He worked with George Soros to kill the British pound, and so George Soros made all.
He said here, I think he said here, economic hitman. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. I walked away for a second. I was throwing some stuff in the trash.
This guy is the worst Treasury Secretary in my lifetime. He doesn't know dick about being a Treasury Secretary, and what he is an economic hitman.
Yeah.
He worked with George Soros to kill the British pound, and so George Soros made all his money when they devalued the British pound, and he shorted it, and he made all that money. That was the guy who did it. So that's what he is. He's an economic hitman, and he thinks he's going to be able to get other countries to go along with this, so they can somehow cripple Iran. And then what do you get? What is the end game? Tulsi Gabbard and our intelligence service already told you that they don't have nuclear weapons. What do you want? You want them to just like give up their government and hand it over to you? I don't know what the point of these sanctions even are. U.S. Treasury. Here's what DD Geopolitics says. This is what total loss and desperation looks like, folks. Once you start secondary and territory sanctions, it's over. It's over. So they're not only going to sanction Iran, they're going to sanction any other country that doesn't follow their sanctions. So they're going to. Super Putin says, weaponize the dollar often enough, and eventually others stop seeing dependence on it as an advantage and start seeing it as a vulnerability. Washington is accelerating the multipolar orders it fears. So right now there's a unipolar world. The United States is the leading economic hegemon and military hegemon. That's over. We're now in a multipolar world. China, Russia, Iran. He sounds like he's about to have a panic attack. I agree. It sounds like he is having a panic attack because he knows that he is now officially the voice of this decision, which is going to backfire. Here is what they're saying in Iran.
Economic threats. Risk cut number 3. For example, is it possible for a country to withhold raw materials for medicine from us just because it wants to align with the Americans? Can it really do that? If they start doing this, we won't let a single drop of oil leave not just the Strait of Hormuz, but the Persian Gulf.
So if he's saying if they go along with it, if they start to try to like not sell them medicine and stuff, that Iran will not only shut down the Strait of Hormuz, but they won't allow a single drop of oil to leave the Middle East, meaning the Gulf states. And how do I know that? Because they can attack them. They already have. And there's nothing we can do about it. All they got to do is hit their energy plant with a drone, and then they're done with, because then they can't their desalination plants, which is what provides 80 to 90% of their water, go offline, and they all have to leave because it's 120 degrees in the Gulf states, and you can't live without water. And then in a couple of days, there's a humanitarian, and everybody has to leave. So they know this.
Is it possible for these countries to join the economic blockade alongside America, harm our economic interests, and we still let oil leave the Persian Gulf? No, oil will not leave through the Strait of Hormuz.
No. This is not possible. Here is their foreign minister. Here's what the foreign minister has to say.
Same old bullying that we've seen from the hardliners in America. In a sense, it's a repetitive movie. They just keep replaying it. We know it by heart, and we know how to confront and deal with it. The fact that they talk about military operations, saying we will strike, we will do this, we will do that, and now they've returned to bringing up the same old plans again, shows that
motherfuckers pathetic, bro.
They are truly desperate.
They're pathetic, desperate, pathetic, weak. And I love it. Lord, bringing them niggas down, man. Let me get a scripture. Yeah, god dang, yeah. Isaiah chapter 47, verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. They call it virgin daughter of Babylon because this place never been invaded or penetrated by arrows. But it will soon be. But right now, the Lord is jacking this place up. Sit on the ground. Like, go into timeout, nigga. Go into timeout and put the Don's cap on top of your head, bitch. Yeah. Put some dictionaries on top of your head, bitch. Put stacks of Bibles on top of your head. Hit her with a switch. I don't know. Anyway, I'm just thinking of shit to punish. Whatever. Anyway, I'm getting a little carried away. There is no throne. Yeah, there's no throne for you. O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Yeah, you ain't pretty. You ain't dainty. America, no, you nothing but a whore. Nasty, freaking nasty whore. Oh, you know what I'm going to speak? I'm going to say something about the movie I was watching called Motor City. That was a goddamn garbage ass movie. You got the guy that played in that TV show called Richard. He probably one of those. He probably a man meat. Yeah, he's like Terry Crews, the nigga walking around bouncing his damn picks and shit. He's man meat. Yeah, in the Hollywood, he's considered to be man meat, bunch of swole ass faggots. But this one right here, this Edomite looking dude, he probably another man meat too. But in this movie, this nigga's a simp. In this movie, I'm watching that garbage last night. What happened? The girl comes out of the club all mad and shit, and he sees her. They you know, he comes to the rescue by giving her a lighter for a cigarette. And then the boyfriend comes out, her husband comes out, and tell her, "Bitch, you out of order," and all this. And then the dude steps in, Captain Swole, Captain Kirk, Captain Save-A-Ho steps in and tries to save the bitch and shit. And then took the bitch from the dude, which belonged to him, and he took the bitch. And anyway, long story short, the bitch dead. Them two niggas fight. It's all because of a bitch. They're gonna trying to kill each other over a bitch the whole time. And Captain Swole or Captain Save-A-Ho, he couldn't just mind his own business. It would have never happened. But it's a movie though. It's a movie. But it just shows you how this shit is. Anyway, the whore, she's a whore. Pretty much. The whole story, the woman is a whore. And these two dudes are fighting over this whore. But anyway, let me get back to the scripture. I just feel like bringing that up about a stupid movie I watched yesterday or last night. But anyway, take a millstone and grind meal, cover thy locks, make her bare, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, exposing you as who you truly are. America, you Edomites in America, and you Edomites all over the world. Because y'all one big happy family scattered all over the world doing nasty fucking freak shit. Mainly in America, this is the headquarters of nasty shit. But hell, you niggas are everywhere. And you come in different shapes, sizes, skin color. Damn right. And he's majority Edomites are red, so-called white people. But you're going to have Edomites that look like so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, Native American, Chinese, African booty scratchers. You know, Dikembe Mutombo, Edomite looking niggas. You're going to have some Hawaiian surfing Japhetic people that look like, they could be Edomites that look like Japhet. You get what I'm trying to say. Just the same opposite as all these other nations. You might have a Moabite that look like so-called Jake or so-called black man. Because Jake could be anybody, you know. And it's just like I was saying, Jake could be, can look like any other nation. But the majority of Jake is going to be so-called blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Anyway, where I left off at. The nakedness shall be uncovered. Yeah, thy shame shall be seen. You be exposed, America. That's you monk-ass Edomites over in America. You small-hat niggers. Yeah. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. So when the Lord returns, he gonna be beyond a man. He gonna be an angelic force of nature, a supernatural entity that's going to fuck your shit up. Yeah, and I said it like that because I don't give a fuck. Yeah, what the Lord going to do is fuck your shit up. And same for all the rest of you nations. And you 2/3 Israelites. As for our Redeemer, the Lord Yahweh of hosts is his name. The Holy One of Israel. From Yahweh down to Yahweh Shah. Where I left off here. Oh yeah, the video.
Think of any other solution against the great nation of Iran, so they just keep bringing these repetitive plans back to the stage. They must come to understand that there is simply no other viable way forward other than engaging in a dialogue with genuine respect for the people of Iran. It is absolutely essential that we focus on finding a lasting solution that is firmly rooted in the principles of justice and human dignity for everyone involved. They must put all these other paths aside and return to a path that has been tested before. The Iranian nation responds to the language of dignity with respect. Same old bully.
No, this is just the United States trying to bully the world to do what they want.
Yeah, and these people are not intimidated anymore. They had enough of it. The Lord put the spirit on these nations. Say, fuck you.
It's not going to work.
Now it's like the bully in the playground. Now everybody who got bullied by the playground, they realized they all got bullied by this asshole. Now they teamed up and start beating the shit out of this bully. And now this bully, he got beat up. And but with this kind of bully, America, what they gonna do once they getting jumped and beat up by all these other nations, they gonna probably go on a Samson. What they call that shit? That Samson option, like what the baby dick suckers want to do. If they losing so bad, they'll just say, "Fuck it, we just gonna nuke you niggas, scorch the earth." Yeah.
Work. This is what's really happening. The downfall of the arrogant is near.
No.
That's what's really happening. Let's read this. This is for Joe Kent says this. He says the Iranians will likely respond to the sanctions by attacking our bases and/or ships in the region. The Iranian hardliners prefer a military conflict because they believe striking us is their only true deterrent, and a kinetic war keeps their people rallied around the regime. We should deprive them of this option by pulling our troops from the region. I agree with him on that, but he's like for the sanctions. He goes, pulling out troops limits our risk, provides the sanctions the time they have to get their desired effect. What is their desired effect? I don't know. Maybe someone knows more than me. Maybe Joe Kent knows what they are. What is their desired effect? You want them to hand over their country to you? They already don't have a nuclear weapon. What is your desired effect? I don't know what the... And so if you pull... one of their demands is you pull your troops out of the Middle East. So if we pull all our troops out of the Middle East, they'll probably open the Strait of Hormuz. So why don't we just do that? Is that the desired effect, to get them to open the Strait of Hormuz? So we're going to... And let's remember, sanctions is what hurts the people. It doesn't hurt the ruling class. Fidel Castro never missed a meal when we choked off their country from economics. It hurt the people. Same thing with Iran. This hurts the people. This will allow the president to say he won the military fight. He's said that 1,000 times already. Now it's all economic diplomatic, and the war can slowly fade from the daily news cycle. Once that happens, a quiet arrangement can be made to get the oil flowing ahead of the elections in November. But if the sanctions don't work, if we get sucked back into an escalation cycle, break the escalation trap by pulling our troops out. So I think he just wants our troops out. So I'm going to give Joe Kent the benefit of the doubt here and say he's just trying to say, hey, let's just get our troops out of there.
But they're not getting... Well, some going to get out, but then still war going to continue on because the Lord going to allow it to continue on. And what is it about? Tropical Storm Dolly? Oh, yeah. Since Dolly Parton passed, now we got Tropical Storm Dolly. I bet you the comment boards are like, wait a minute, bruh. What the hell? Anyway, that's all I got, man. Yeah, it's a financial mess for these nations. And it ultimately coming down, well, the Lord is raking it up, but it's also part of the movie where it's going to lead, or the story where it leads to the chip implants. Digital currency, CBDC, stable coins, whatever the fuck you call it. And it leads to them chip implants, the RFID microchip implant. The one goes in your right hand or your left hand or your feet or your butt cheeks or your titty, big titty, small titty, or your man boobs. Yeah, people like it weird like that. And ultimately in your brain too, the brain chip. But it's all leading to that. When this financial collapse and all that shit happens, it's going to lead to that. Let me see. What can I read? Damn, I feel like I did a 2-hour video. Oh, no, but 1 hour doing. No, man. What? Damn, 1 hour already. Let me go ahead and get the scriptures. I played a lot of videos. I was all at the same time watching the or not watch well watching or listening while I was putting a shelf rack up or putting it together. It showed up, or Amazon dropped the thing off, so I was just putting it together while listening what's going on in these videos. But James chapter 5 verse 1, go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your misery shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. And yeah, I mean, it's not just the U.S. currency. Their U.S. currency is garbage. Hell, all these countries' currency is garbage because they ain't backed up by nothing. They have no value. Yeah. What did it say? In Japan, they shit is collapsing. Europe, they're collapsed. The whole continent, well, so-called continent of Europe is, they really Eurasia or West Asia. But anyway, Europe continent economic collapse is accelerating. And it's all leading, like I said, it's all leading to the chip implant. But as far as they don't know, it's really leading to the absolute collapse of their society. Because the Lord got other plans. Yeah, you bring in a chip implant, but soon that shit won't last long. But anyway, the biggest country that's gonna take the biggest hit when it comes financially or economically, gonna be America. Where we at? And shall eat your flesh as it will fire. Ye have harbored up treasures for the trap. Ye have harbored up treasures for the last days. And a lot of people, their wealth is being taken away. While you sleeping or while you fully awake, your wealth is being taken away by these devils. And it's whatever. Hey man, we ready for this shit, or we pray to be ready. Yeah, and I'm talking about you believers of Yahweh Shema Shah, man. We pray to be ready. So don't haste. Don't take don't take this lightly, cause this is about to go down. What else I got? Oh yeah. Let me read it. This collapse is going to be a hell of a... Yeah, it's going to take a big effect on people. Ezekiel chapter 7 verse 18, they shall also glory themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all heads. They shall cast their silver in the streets. Pretty much they gonna just throw that bullshit away, because it ain't worth a damn, the currency from either in America or any other place around the world, because all the currency is garbage. It ain't backed up by anything, like I was saying. America ain't the only one that got a shitty currency. All these currencies are shit. Anyway, and when it comes to that debt shit, like $40 billion in debt, man, get the fuck out of here. The money ain't real like the debt ain't real. The debt is, we get something to talk about, but I'm just like, the debt ain't fucking real. The shit ain't real, just like the dollar ain't got no real value. So I'm like, psh. Anyway, everything's fake. Everything's blown up and whatever. Anyway, and their gold shall be removed. You know, the large sums of money or the savings and the stocks, everything that people pour in to invest, and it's pretty much going to be taken away. And you will own nothing and be happy. Like I said, they hopped up treasures for the last days. They taking all their wealth from the people. Boy, and you're going to be stuck with nothing but a chip implant waiting for your ass. That's why you seek the Lord, man. Pray like heaven. The Lord don't have you bow down during that hour of temptation, except this devil's chip implant. Where I left off at. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of the Lord Yahweh. No, you won't be able to buy your way out of judgment. They shall not satisfy their soul, neither fill their bowels, because hell, the money gonna be so worthless that you won't be able to buy anything for food. Nope. Like the simple things you used to buy for like $3, like a sandwich. Now shit, that damn sandwich gonna cost $300. Like that remind me of that movie Civil War. When they're talking about it at that gas station, they talking about a sandwich or half a sandwich like $300. Yeah, that inflation. Well, no, that hyperinflation has kicked in. Yeah, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. Yeah, stop chasing that bag and chase the truth. But you chase Yahweh Shema Shah. And how do you get close to Yahweh Shema Shah? You gotta start with the prophets. Yep, the prophets of Yahweh Shema Shah. And that be the real prophets that speaking the truth, starting with GMS, Great Millstone. And there's other camps that's not, you know, affiliated with them, but speaking the same truth. I'm not GMS, but I'm speaking the same truth, and I'm thankful and grateful the Lord led me to those men to learn from the elders that labored for 40 years. I ain't never met that dude before, any of them other guys. I ain't met nobody. I just listened to the internet or play videos from the internet. But soon I hope to meet all of y'all when we on them chariots in the new transformed bodies as gods. Yeah. Where I left off at. Let me get one more. Let me get this last one. Jeremiah chapter 51 verse 6. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, which is talking about America, and deliver every man his soul, be not cut off of her iniquity. For this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. The Lord is messing this place up, and he ain't done with it yet. He about to really mess this place up. But before he really messed this place up with nuclear fire, he gonna be messing this place up. What America been built on, lies and deception, stealing and raping and robbing. Lord gonna jack America up because of all that, all the unrighteous dealings and such, and iniquities, sin on top of sin. He will render unto her recompense, payback. Especially what America, you Edomites, you Amalekites, you baby dick sucking, small hat dick mate. I'm gonna get my words all jumbled up. I'm gonna say you Jewish niggers. You know, God, the Lord gonna fuck you niggers up. Damn right. Payback, bitch. Babylon, man, America has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand. You stole our heritage, bitch. Yeah, you gonna pay for that. Yeah, you had us as slaves, bitch. You gonna pay for that. Shit. Man. Anyway. That made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, that philosophy. Therefore, the nations are mad. They're going crazy, insane in the membrane. And yeah. Babylon, America is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her take bun for her pain, so she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. The Lord ain't about to save this place. No, he's about to destroy this place. He kept saying that, and it's true. It's happening. As you can see it. You can see it. You can feel it. The Lord is putting in work on this place. And this ain't nothing. Forsake her. Leave her be. Abandon her. And let us go everyone to his own country. And you got people from other countries that came here to make money and do business. But now they're like, oh, business ain't so great here in America. We ain't making much money. Okay, we're going to leave. They're going to leave. And they're leaving now. They're leaving America, Babylon the Great. In record numbers. And you got Americans that born here are leaving too in record numbers. Ain't that some shit? Anyway, where I left off at. For her judgment reaches unto heaven and is lifted up even to the sky. So there's a heavy judgment coming to America. Yep. So best thing you need to do, depart from this place, because this is not your rest. Pretty much this whole world is not your rest. It's ruled by devils. Monkey ass heathens. These niggas, I was watching one brother from Hawaii. I seen the clip, I seen a thumbnail, but I wasn't sure to even read the title of it. But I seen the thumbnail. It was like a funny looking cookie. It had like a symbol in a cookie, but it was really a plastic biscuit. And I listened to the bro from Hawaii. It was this Hawaii GMS Hawaii bar, and it was like, bro, really? Well, I'm not surprised. These niggas here making plastic biscuits that's full of protein and minerals and vitamins. Like they trying to sell you some shit so they can fucking kill your ass. Well, I'm telling you, this is goddamn hell. We been eating shit with plastic in it, but now they want to be openly selling this shit, or want to give you this shit, willingly give you this shit as something that's work, that's called food. No, thank you, man. This place sucks, man. Seek the Lord and pray to get the Lord to speed up the time, because if we don't get out here anytime soon, all of us will be dead. No flesh will be saved. And there go my warrior music playing in the background. I like the song, but that's an interruption to me. But anyway, yeah, my warrior background music. Well, that's my ringtone. But anyway, that's all I gotta say, man. Seek the Lord by seeking his prophets and take heed to what they say, and try to build a spiritual mental relationship with Yahweh Shema Shah by praying Yahweh Shema Shah, praising Yahweh Shema Shah, worship Yahweh Shema Shah, fearing Yahweh Shema Shah, and repenting Yahweh Shema Shah. To all the men out there pushing this truth and nothing but the truth in the name, spirit, and the power of Yahweh Shema Shah. Keep on preaching, keep on teaching, keep your faith and trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah, and stay humble. And for the men out there that's not teaching and preaching, but keeping your faith and trust strong, And Yahweh Shema Shah, keep doing what you do. Not every man of Israel gonna be a prophet, but you can always you always have faith in Yahweh Shema Shah. You just keep doing what you do. And same thing for you few sisters out there. Keep your faith and trust strong. Yahweh Shema Shah. Stay humble. Stay in order with your man. If you ain't got no man, stay in order. Yahweh Shema Shah. Peace and bless to the hopeful elect, and all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah. Shalom.